the start of training camp all the way up until now. And I'm here to tell you, the Indiana Fever biggest issue is Stephanie White. No doubt about it. I feel like she's not a good leader to help them make it to that next level. Film do not lie. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't, but the film...
There's a timeless rule in professional basketball that every legendary coach has lived by for decades. You practice the same way you play. From John Wooden to Pat Riley to Dawn Staley, the message has always been the same. Habits built behind closed gym doors eventually show themselves under the arena lights. And right now, fans believe the Indiana Fever accidentally exposed far more than they intended when they released recent practice footage following the painful loss to the Dallas Wings. The organization likely hoped the videos would calm the chaos surrounding the team, showing players working hard, smiling together, and grinding through practice after a difficult opening night. But instead of reassuring people, the clips ignited even more concern because serious basketball fans weren't focused on flashy edits or motivational music. They were watching the details: defensive rotations, communication, body language, effort, positioning, and overall intensity. And to many frustrated supporters, what they saw looked less like a focused contender preparing for a championship push and more like a team still lacking urgency and defensive discipline. That perception only fueled growing fears surrounding Coach Stephanie White and the overall culture developing around the roster. After surrendering 107 points in the opener, fans expected to see sharper intensity and visible accountability in practice. Instead, critics online started accusing the team of carrying a relaxed atmosphere at a moment when supporters believe the pressure should already be sky-high. And because Caitlin Clark is already viewed as carrying a massive physical and emotional burden for the franchise, the footage triggered even deeper anxiety among fans who fear their generational superstar is trying to hold together a team that still hasn't fully matched her level of urgency or competitive intensity.
Back here, doing nothing. Now, granted, this isn't the whole practice, but to me, it's a lot of people walking around. They're joking, they're playing. This is like an undisciplined basketball team. Every time you see Stephanie White, she's standing around, clapping, cheering, not coaching, looking very undisciplined. Now, what I'm going to start doing, and everybody else probably is going to copy this, I know they is.
When people watch practice footage from elite championship organizations like the Las Vegas Aces or the New York Liberty, the intensity almost jumps through the screen. Those environments feel ruthless. Every possession looks personal. Players dive for loose balls like the season depends on it, defenders crash through screens with force, and the moment someone misses a rotation or loses focus, practice stops instantly. Coaches demand accountability in real time because championship habits are built through pressure long before the games ever start. That's why the recent footage from the Indiana Fever sparked such an emotional reaction online. To many fans, the clips didn't feel urgent or demanding. They looked slow, relaxed, and strangely comfortable for a team coming off a defensive collapse on national television. Supporters noticed players jogging through sets instead of attacking them with intensity. They watched defenders casually drift under screens, hands hanging low, while offensive actions unfolded without resistance. The energy felt flat, almost lifeless, and what unsettled fans the most was seeing Coach Stephanie White observing it all without visibly stopping drills or demanding sharper execution. Fair or not, that perception instantly fueled a bigger narrative forming around the team: the fear that mediocre habits are quietly becoming accepted inside the organization. Because in the minds of frustrated supporters, practice culture eventually becomes game culture. And after allowing 107 points in the opener, fans wanted to see a team practicing with desperation, urgency, and accountability. Instead, many walked away believing the Fever still look emotionally disconnected from the level of discipline required to become a serious contender around Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston.
Earlier today, another one. Where's Stephanie White? Standing there scratching her fucking head. She's scratching her head. Literally scratching her head. She do not know what she's doing. This is what she's literally doing. Scratching her head. not coaching. Bro, keep telling y'all, and there's more.
To frustrated fans, Coach Stephanie White no longer looks like she's running a hardened championship environment inside the Indiana Fever facility. They look at the recent practice footage and see a team operating with far too much comfort after a nationally televised defensive collapse. That perception became even louder because White herself openly acknowledged issues after the loss. Missed rotations, broken coverages, and players failing to get back in transition defense. But supporters immediately connected those comments back to the practice clips they had just watched. In their eyes, the breakdowns happening during games are simply reflections of habits being tolerated behind closed doors. Fans expected to see practices filled with urgency, demanding defensive drills, non-stop communication, and visible accountability after giving up 107 points. Instead, critics online believe the atmosphere looked strangely relaxed, with mistakes happening without immediate consequences or corrections. Fair or not, many supporters are now building a narrative that the Fever culture has become overly comfortable at a moment when the team desperately needs intensity and discipline. And because the defensive struggles are already placing enormous pressure on stars like Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, fans fear the lack of structure is forcing the franchise cornerstones to carry even heavier physical and emotional burdens. To them, Clark especially has started to look like a superstar trying to drag a flawed system forward while the rest of the organization still struggles to match the urgency surrounding this critical moment in Fever basketball history.
Yeah, so you might do that. And for us too, just managing minutes early. We don't want to gas out, our players, and we probably did that in the second half. We probably should have went back to our rotations a little bit quicker, and shortened minutes.
So just for starters, how did you feel about?
When fans watch Caitlin Clark in these practice clips, they aren't just watching passes or jump shots. They're studying the tension in her body language. Clark plays basketball at a completely different speed, both mentally and physically. Every read happens instantly. Every movement is calculated 2 steps ahead. When she comes off a screen, she expects sharp timing, hard cuts, and aggressive movement toward the rim. She sees the floor like a player operating in fast forward while everyone else is still catching up in real time. That's why so many frustrated supporters believe the disconnect inside the Indiana Fever practice environment has become impossible to ignore. Fans claim they keep seeing moments where Clark delivers passes to spots teammates should already be attacking, only for the play to stall because someone jogged instead of sprinted or reacted a second too late. In transition, she appears ready to ignite fast breaks before the wings have even filled the lanes. To critics online, it looks like Clark is trying to run an elite high-speed offense while parts of the roster still move with a slower, more casual rhythm. And that perception has now merged with growing concerns about the physical toll being placed on her body. Supporters fear that when teammates fail to consistently match her intensity, Clark ends up overcompensating, carrying more offensive creation, more mental processing, and more physical stress possession after possession. That's why every conversation about her back discomfort suddenly feels magnified. Fans worry that the combination of enormous expectations, non-stop pace, and roster inconsistency is forcing the franchise superstar to shoulder an unsustainable burden far too early in her career. And because Coach Stephanie White is already under scrutiny for the team's defensive discipline and overall culture, many supporters are now questioning whether the current system truly matches the relentless competitive edge that makes Clark such a unique and transformational talent.
So we'll do more in practice today, and then we'll again evaluate after every day. I know that it's a boring answer, but it's the thing that we do when you come back from injury. It's like you go through a practice, you add a little bit more. You see how you are post-practice, you see how you are the next day, and then we evaluate. It really, literally is one day at a time.
You mentioned with Caitlin and just the adjustments during the game, that kind of being an ongoing thing. Could you just expand upon that? Is it like an injury related or just kind of just basic maintenance?
No, it's basic maintenance, and I think when you think about the expansion of medical teams in the W, it's like every.
Bro, Caitlin bet not be hurt. She bet not be hurt. She
the
bet
professional
not.
team. Like you have more hands on duty, and more people on duty, and more hands on deck, and you can go back and you can get regular maintenance adjustments. So
Now, I believe this year Caitlin possibly brought in her own doctor.
Fans are already drawing their own conclusions. From their perspective, the signs were never subtle. They point to small moments in practice, missed communication on defensive switches, hesitation in rotations, and breakdowns that feel familiar when replayed against real competition. When Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull collided on a defensive assignment against the Dallas Wings, it didn't look like an isolated mistake to them. It looked like repetition of a deeper issue. They also remember what showed up in the box score. The rebounds surrendered in critical moments, the second chance points that swung momentum, and ultimately, the 107 points allowed in the season opener, a number many fans see not as an outlier, but as confirmation of what they believe they've been watching for weeks. To them, it isn't about one bad night. It's about structure. The argument forming online is simple. If the defense is breaking down this early, then it traces back to preparation. Not just execution under pressure, but habits built or not built in training camp. That's where the criticism intensifies. Fans are now questioning whether the standards in practice match the demands of live games. Whether defensive discipline is being enforced with enough consistency. Whether the team's identity is being shaped with urgency or left too open to interpretation. And as the conversation escalates, so does the pressure on leadership. The expectation isn't just adjustment, it's enforcement. A demand for sharper accountability on rotations, effort in transition, and attention to detail regardless of role, experience, or salary. Because from the outside looking in, patience is no longer the message. Urgency is.
And ball screen defense. Those are two areas that were glaring weaknesses in game one, and so we're going to continue to work on that.
What's it for you guys going on the road for the first time this season? What's the mindset or the mentality as you guys get a chance to go out to LA and try to get your first win of the season?
Just continue to get better. Get 1% better every day. We want to clean up some of the things that we had breakdown-wise on the defensive end against Dallas, and we'll look to clean it up against LA.
With the defensive breakdowns in transition, is that just maybe, what do you chalk that up to? Is it fatigue? Is it just players still getting up to speed? How do you do that?
I think it's quite a few things. And one, I think it's awareness. If you got to either offensive rebound or you got to get back and get matched up. I think two, it's
The honeymoon phase is officially over. What once felt like early season optimism has shifted into something far more unforgiving. The reality of a regular season where reputations don't matter as much as execution. Around the league, and especially within Indiana, every possession is now being measured under a harsher lens. The Indiana Fever's early struggles have sparked a wider debate about standards, structure, and identity. Fans aren't just reacting to box scores anymore. They're watching body language, communication, and the details that usually separate good teams from struggling ones. For many, the concern isn't talent. It's consistency. Mistakes that might have been dismissed in preseason now carry weight. Defensive miscommunications, slow rotations, and lapses in transition are being replayed and reinterpreted as signs of something deeper, not isolated errors, but patterns. That's why the conversation has turned toward culture. How practices are being run. How accountability is enforced. How much pressure exists internally when things go wrong. The question being asked online isn't subtle anymore. Is the environment sharp enough for a team built around elite offensive talent like Caitlin Clark to thrive over a full season? Criticism has also extended to leadership, with debates emerging about whether the current approach emphasizes patience at the expense of urgency. Some argue that development takes time. Others point to the immediate demands of a league where results are judged nightly. And through it all, the central tension remains the same, the gap between expectation and execution. Because in a season that started with promise, the standard has already changed.